Okay, so we're going to learn how to create a site with Dreamweaver. We're going to use divs and cascading style sheets. I really encourage you to go over that 7-section tutorial that I created. Today I'm just going to go over a little bit about what a div is and simply show you how you can place a div in your site. The new Dreamweaver makes this a lot easier. Creating divs, it actually kind of does it for you. So let's just go through this today, and I'm going to talk a little bit before we get started what is a div and a little bit about how we used to design. So we used to use tables to build a website. That's how designers used to design years ago. And tables feel safe to new designers because they don't have to use a separate style sheet. Tables also feel safe to inexperienced designers because tables won't break when the content is too wide. Columns are not squeezed under other columns as they are in a div-based structure. And this adds to the feelings that using tables is safe. But tables increase the complexity of your website and make it more difficult to maintain. They reduce a website's flexibility, accommodating different media, design elements, and they limit a website's functionality. So tables contain different tags. You got the table tag being a wrapper, TR for each row, TD for each cell. Each tag is given its own line of code with indentation. With all these tags for the table, several extra lines of code are added to the content. The column span and the row span attribute make the code even more complex. And any developer maintaining that page has to go through a lot of code to understand its structure. It's very difficult to maintain a site that is done with tables. Excess code slows down the development and raises maintenance costs. That's very important to understand. It is much more expensive to redesign a site that's done with tables than it is to redesign a site done with divs and cascading style sheets. Tables are also harder to separate content from design. So another issue using tables is they are not accessible to screen readers. Over 1 billion people worldwide live with some sort of disability. There is 285 million people that have visual impairment. To make your site accessible, you need to develop your site so that it can be decoded and easily navigated through a screen reader. 285 million people are a lot of people to not make your site accessible to. So a div-based structure has a much steeper learning curve than a table-based structure. The developer must know cascading style sheets and understand the difference between block-level elements and inline elements, when to use floats, when to use absolute positioning, and how to solve browser bugs. The div element isn't visual like the table element. Everyone knows what a table looks like, but divs are not as obvious. The good thing about a div, though, is that it's only one element. It's not wrapped in a parent element the way the TD tags are in tables. The container then is more flexible and doesn't have the limitations of its parent tag. So using div for structure can make a page more fragile when content is pushing the div to its limit. It can also force columns to fall underneath each other, but this is not such a problem with the new browsers, but more with the older browsers. Divs should only be used to build your structure and its placeholders for design elements when no other block level element can describe the content. So a div, short for division, holds a section of a page that you use in style as a block. So you use divs to organize content in meaningful containers. So you might structure your page, and that's what we're going to do today, with a master head, a div for the navigation, a div for the content, and a div for the footer. So positioning divs will help you to create your layout. The cascading style sheets on the other hand, are all about style, look, and presentation. CSS properties and rules give you an amazing array of control over foreground, backgrounds, colors, fonts, positions, alignments, margins, borders, lists, and other aspects of your presentation. So content is king. The content is the actual information in the headings, paragraphs, lists, divs, tables, forms, images, block quotes, links, and other HTML elements that you are going to use on your page. With no styling, content will look like an outline. So what does using divs and CSS do for us in our sites? So it's going to make your page load faster. It's going to lower hosting costs, make your redesign more efficient and less expensive, Helps you maintain visual consistency throughout your site. Helps you get a better search engine results. Makes your site more accessible to all viewers and user agents. Gives you a competitive edge, that is job security, as more of the world moves to using web standards. So creating your site with cascading style sheets and div requires a slightly different way of thinking about your content and your markup than you've been used to before. But the end results will make it worthwhile and offer you more job opportunity. That's why in this class we are only going to learn how to use divs and how to create a cascading style sheet. Okay, so we're just going to create a container. You have to create a container. You have to have something to place your site into. Without a container, then everything is going to just fall out of your site. So it's very important to create a container. I'm just going to move this for a second, and we have to create a folder. The first thing you need to do is create a folder. So I created a folder here and I called it practice. And inside this folder, I put another folder where all my images are going to go, and also another folder where I'm going to put all my style sheets. Okay, you can have more than one style sheet inside this folder. And I have to set up my site. It's very important to make sure you set up your site and save your page. So let me just make this a hair smaller. It's just a little too big here. Bring it over so you can see. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go site. And I'm going to go new site. I'm going to give my site a name. It needs to be something different from your folder. You can call it my site, practice site. And then you're going to go out onto the desktop and you're going to find that site that you just created. So I'm going to go out to my desktop. I'm going to find the folder that I created and I'm going to select it. And it's going to be called practice. Remember, you don't want to call your folder the same. I'm not going to choose it because I've already been working on this and I don't want it to accidentally choose the folder and become, the site will become complex and not work correctly. So you want to go ahead and select the folder and then you're going to hit choose. And I'm going to cancel here and then you're going to hit save. And that will save your file. So you noticed I already have been working on this site, so I am not going to redo this. I'm going to go to manage site and I'm going to select the one that I've just been working on and hit done. Alright, so you can see that I already have some pages in there that I've been actually working on this. So we're going to call this one, I'm just going to file, save as, and I'm going to give this a different name than what I already have. I'm just going to call this one test. Name it anything that you want. The first page of your site, when you start working with your site, always has to be called index, because this is the page that your browser is going to go and look for. I'm going to hit save. So the next thing I want to do is I want to actually create a style sheet. Okay, so I'm going to go up to my style designer here. Make sure you have this palette open up. I'm going to select this little plus sign. And it comes up and it says create a new style sheet, attach an existing style sheet, or define in the page. Now, I went through all this in your last class. I'm going to create a new style sheet and I'm going to actually select browse. I'm not even going to put anything in there. I'm just going to select browse. Should go out to the folder if you have this set up correctly. If you don't have this set up correctly, then you will not be able to go out to the folder. So make sure you have this set up correctly and then it will automatically go out. So I already have styles in here. I'm going to put it in my style folder that I have been working on, main 1, main 2. So I'm just going to call this one main 3. You need to call yours main, okay? Make sure it goes into the style folder and then I'm going to hit save. And then I'm going to hit save again. And then I'm going to hit OK. So it's telling you that, tell me that it's going to go out to the styles folder and it's going to select main 3. I'm going to hit OK. Make sure you have main 3 selected or main selected when you're working on your project. Okay, if you don't have it selected, then it's going to go out to all sources. So you have to be really careful with that. Now in your paper I have a picture there with the anatomy of the CSS designer panel. This is also in your book, so I suggest that you just go over this so you have kind of an idea of what you're doing. It's not as complicated as it looks. It really isn't. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up so that I can see what I'm doing here. So I have this set of split so I can see my code, and at the same time I can see what I'm doing and designing. This is what's really nice about Dreamweaver, is that what you see is what you get, but this is not always necessarily true with casting style sheets. Okay, so you have to actually preview your site as you're working on it to see how it's looking with casting style sheet. It does help you to see how it's being laid out, but that's something you have to really understand. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to insert a div. Remember I told you that divs are used for your main content of your page. They just kind of act like holders. So the very first one is going to be the container. And this little set here, I'm just going to show you how to put a div in, and I'm just going to create a container. So I'm going to go up to insert div. But you will notice that the new Dreamweaver now has everything in here that you need. Has header, navigation, main, aside, article, section, and footer. All right, these are all divs. So if you go through that 7-section tutorial, I show you how to create all of these, how to put them all together. So I'm just, for this exercise, I'm just going to use div. So this shows you that even if you are using Dreamweaver CS6, which I prefer you don't, you can still create all your sites with divs. So I'm going to insert a div, and it says at insertion point, and I'm going to make this an ID. Remember, ID you can use once in the site. I only need one container in my site. I'm going to call, I like to call my outside container a container. You may have a different name, it doesn't really matter what you want to call it. And I'm just going to select container, and I'm going to hit OK. And as you see, the div fills in some text here for you, so you can actually visually see it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to visually see it. And if you go over here on this section, you can see where it says div ID equals container. And it says content for ID container goes here. And then it ends with a closing div tag, an opening div tag, and closing div tag. And everything falls in between your opening and closing body tag. Okay, so now if I notice down here, I want to actually create some styles for this div. So the only way I can do this, I have to go down to where it says selector. I hit the plus sign. You notice it automatically goes up to container, and it also has this symbol in front of it to tell me that this is an ID. So it's a sign symbol. So I just have to hit enter. And once I do that, it opens up to all the styles. I like to have my piano open up like this. Some people like it the long way. I like it this way. You can open and close this any way you want. I prefer to have it this way. So now if I select over here and I looked over here, I'm just going to set this to show you how you can set your, I want to set this right in the middle. So I'm going to actually put a width in. I'm going to put in pixels. And for this exercise, I'm going to put 960 in, okay. And then I'm going to go down here where it says margin. I'm going to actually select auto. It should come up auto. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. You have to actually kind of get it just right. There you go, auto. And I want to do the same thing here. I'm going to select auto, okay. So this is going to actually center my page into the center. So you can see right now how it's setting my page in the center. And then where it says box size, and I'm going to select content box right here. It says I'm going to select content box, okay. So now we have to think about maybe adding a little style to it if I want to place some style on this file. So let's just go down, and you can actually scroll down this way. You can actually go across. That's for your text. And that's for your borders. Okay, so we can select a style for the border. And I'm just going to kind of scroll down. I can place a color. I can select a color here if I want. I hit enter, put a color in. I can scroll down and just kind of see what options are available to me. I can select a background color if I want. Like I said, you can play around with this. This is just practice right now. And hit enter. Okay, so you can, in your board, you can select width, style, and color. You can select anything you want for your board. If you want to place a style on it, you can place a style Let me just try double, just so you can see. And I can put a width, but I'm not going to actually put a width on this. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. So that if I go over here on my file, you can actually start to see it. You can see the border going around it. I can make my border bigger if I want. Let me just select here. Let's make it thick. So now you can actually see how your border looks. And you go down here, and then if I go back onto my page, and I select here, and I place some text, and place some text in here. Okay, so this is telling you that this is where I'm going to place in all my divs for my content. So this is just the exercise, just showing you how you can also select your type here if you want. You can select a family, color family. We can play around with this just to see what it looks like. I hit enter, and you see how your color is going to change. I can select a font family. Okay, and I can select a font size. If you pick pixels, right now it's at 0. I can put it 25. Okay, so you can see how cascading style sheets, adding different styles and putting on an external cascading style sheet is going to give you a lot of control over your file. So now I'm going to show you how you can build a simple 2-column structure. Okay, so I'm going to create a new page here. I'm going to go File, New, and I'm going to give it a, I'm going to create it here, and I'm going to file and save it as a different name. So let's see, I have test 2. I'm just going to call this test 3. Remember, no spaces in web design. And then I'm going to hit save. Okay, so I am going to select this plus sign again, and I'm going to create a new CSS file. I'm going to go out and browse again, and it's going to go right into my style sheet because I'm still in the same file. I'm going to call main, and I'm going to call this one 3. You can give these any kind of name you want, but I just find it's easier to call mine main. Okay, and then I'm going to look, and it's going to go out to styles, and it's going to show me main right here, main 3, and I'm going to hit OK. So you're going to make sure that you are on the same, sheet. It says main 3, and I'm going to actually delete this. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a div. I'm going to make sure it goes to the insert inside. I'm going to make an ID. Remember, ID is just one time on the file. And this very first one is going to be my container again. And everything is going to go inside this container. I'm going to hit OK. So here's my container up there. I'm going to go down to my selectors. I'm going to hit the plus. And you see how it pops right up to the container. I'm going to hit enter. So now I have my style already here. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to work on my style after I finish putting in all my divs. So the next one I'm going to put in is going to be the header. I'm going to select right inside here, inside the container. I want to make sure that it goes into my container. So I'm going to insert a div. You know, if you notice down here, you'll see there's header, navigation. I know you actually has this all set up for you, but for simplicity, I just want to show you how easy it is to just place in the div. So I'm going to also put it at the insertion point, and this one I'm going to call header. I'm going to hit OK, and you'll notice that it actually indents, and if you go over into your code, you see the main div, the containers up here, and you see the open tag and closing tag, and you're going to see that the header is inside the main div. So you can keep track of where your divs are just by looking at your code. I'm going to select plus again, And I'm not going to select container head. I'm just going to select head. So I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to hit enter. So now I have a CSS style for my container and one for my header. So I'm going to go back and select inside the container. This is very important. If I don't select inside the container and I select inside the head, it's going to go inside my head tag. And I don't want it to do that. I want everything to stay inside the container. Okay, so now I'm going to create another div, and I'm going to create a one for the navigation. So you have to go back into the container right up here, and we're going to insert div, and I'm going to call this navigation, and I'm going to hit OK. Now I'm going to go back down here. I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to hit the plus sign, and you see it pops up as container navigation. I'm going to get rid of the container and just keep it as navigation. I'm going to hit enter. Okay. So now if you notice over here, my I have to actually move my navigation because it's gone above my header. So very easy. I can just grab it and you can just move it down. And just so it looks nice and neat, I'm just going to move it down so that you can see it. And you will see that, I'm just going to move this up. And you see that they're both are still inside the main container div. But now that I moved it, now the navigation goes underneath the header. Then it's nice and neat the way you want it to be. So let's go ahead and finish this up. We're going to create another div, and this div is going to be called the content div. I'm going to go back to the container, and I'm going to insert a div. I'm going to call this one content, and then I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to go down and select my selector, and you see it's going to pop up content, and I'm just going to move this down, and I'm going to hit enter. So now I have a div for my container, I have a rule for my container, I have a div for my header, I have a rule for my header, I have a div for my navigation bar, and I have a rule for my navigational bar, and then I have a div for my content, and I have a rule for it. And again, you'll see that the content went up to the top, so I am going to move this down so that it falls underneath the navigation. Move it right there. And it always kind of falls apart a little bit, so I'm just going to make it look nice and neat again. So I'm going to move them up. So you just go ahead and move it up, and then I'm going to move it in a little bit. I just like to have it look nice and neat as I'm working on this, so that I can, it helps me work with my file a little bit, just so that you can see what I'm doing here. So if you notice over here, so now you should have the container should be first, header after that, navigation after that, and content after that. So I'm going to place in one more div, and the last one is going to be my footer. So I'm going to select again inside the container. Make sure you select inside the container, okay? If you don't, it's going to fall into one of these other divs. I'm going to insert a div. On this one, I'm going to call it footer. I'm going to hit OK again. I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to select this, and it's going to pop up, and I'm just going to move this and just put footer and hit enter. And there we have. Now we have a div for the footer, and also are able to put on some CSS styles. So again, I have to move my footer down so that it goes down to the bottom of the file. Let's put it below the content. Okay, actually stayed nice and neat this time. So we have the very first one is going to be the header. Okay, so here's the header. Then we have an ID for the header, ID for the navigation, an ID for the content, and ID for the footer. So we're all set. So we're all set to start putting our styles on, and I'm going to file and save my page. So you don't want to lose your page. You've already saved it as test, so you want to make sure that you save it. We're going to go ahead and place some CSS styles on our file. Okay, so we're going to get started here, and the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start placing styles on my container, header, navigation, content, and footer. So the very first one that I'm going to place a style on is going to be my container. If I select on the outside, you can see everything is inside the container, and that's what you want it to do. You can also look over on your HTML side and make sure that everything is correct. So I'm going to select the container, and I'm going to go ahead and put a for my size, I'm going to just kind of make this a fixed site. It's a little easier to keep everything inside my site correctly. And I'm going to set my right margins, right and left, I'm going to set them to auto. So you can just go right down here, set right in there, and set auto. I'm going to put everything in the center, just like we did before, because I want my whole site to fall in the center. So I'm going to scroll down now, and just so that you can see what we're doing. Let's see, I'm going to put some color in here. I'm going to bring this up and add some color. So background color is right here. So I'm just going to choose a color. It can be just about any color you want. It doesn't really matter. You can play around with this and choose all different colors. I'm just going to choose this color. I'm going to hit enter. Let's see what it does so far. Okay, so far I have a little color on it. I might even want to put a border around it. So let's just maybe play with this, and just so you can get some use of how to do all this stuff. And place a little border, and we can also put a color in for the border. Okay, so now we have our very first style that we've created, and for the container, so we put in the width size because we're making this a fixed site. I want to center it. I'm not going to put anything down as far as size goes, because it's going to really depend upon the content. But right here where it says I'm going to place right here where it says box sizing, I'm going to put content box. Alright, because everything is going to go inside this box. So next I'm going to go ahead and start working on my header. So I want my header width to be the same as my container, obviously. So I'm going to put a size in. I put this in 900 also. And my width, I'm going to put a little height in it. That's my width. My height, I'm going to put a little height in it, only so that you can see the site as you're working on it. So the size I'm going to put is, I'll just put like 150. This does not necessarily have to be the size that you're going to put in for your site. It's just for this exercise, okay? Then I'm going to go down. I'm also going to set my margins for my header. I'm also going to set them to auto for my header. And you see, it looks like it already popped up for me. I just want to double check and make sure. So I'm going to go ahead and put a color in. Let me just scroll this up and find some color here. My background color right here. And I'm going to try to keep to the same colors or similar colors that I did for the exercise. So I'm going to put like a red in here. I'm going to hit enter. Okay. So what I'm going to do before I continue on is I'm going to actually get rid of the content up here. And I'm just going to put header right here. And I might even make my red not quite so dark so that I can see my text a little better. Maybe I'll just make it a light pink. I'm going to file and save what I have. Actually, I have to say it's going to save onto my style sheet. We're going to open up the style sheet in the end, and you can actually see what we have. Alright, so the next is going to be the navigation. So we're going to go ahead and start working on the navigation. I'm going to select that right here, and I'm going to scroll up, and you can guess that the width of the navigation is also going to be 900 pixels. And I'm also going to select margin, and I'm also going to put in the auto left and auto right in the margin. I'm going to do the same thing. Sometimes you have to just catch it just on the outside here. There we go. Auto and auto. And I'm also going to put a height just so that you can see it. Maybe for this I'm going to put in maybe just 30 for the navigation. I'm going to hit enter. And I'm going to put in a color for the navigation too, just so that you can see this as you're working on it. It just sometimes helps you to, you can always go back and change your colors, but sometimes it just helps you to visually see. I think that's half the problem with using divs, is that you really can't visually see what you're doing. So I go down to the background color, and for this I'm going to select the blue color. I'm going to hit enter. So now you can see that I have my header and I have my navigation. I'm going to change this text to just navigation. Okay. So now you can see what we have so far. We can change our text too if we want. I mean, if you want to make the text color white, we can do that. We just have to go over here and choose white and hit enter. And the same thing up in the header. If I want to change this to white so you guys can see it better, you can change all your text. You can do whatever you want to do. Alright, so now we're going to work on the content. I'm going to actually make a left and right column. Okay? So you have to kind of be careful with this. So we have our header. We got that all set. We have our navigation, and that's all set. So the next thing we're going to do is, before I even start that, I'm going to work on the content tag. We'll go ahead and select the, we did the navigation. We placed in all the size for that. I'm going to select my content. Okay, so the content tag, you want to make sure that you are inside the correct tag before you even get started. So you want to make sure that you have the content tag selected. So I'm going to place inherit. I have to go and find it. It's a little different in some of these with cascading style sheets in this format as it is with the previous format. So we have to just go ahead and try to find inherit here. Okay, so I put in 900 for my width, and I'm going to just set this at 300. You can see it's already starting to develop a little bit here using the cascaded style sheets. So I put in 300 for the height just so you can see the site starting to come together. And where it says display is where I place inherit. Now you can read on the paper that I have for cascading positioning from the w3school.com. There's static positioning, fixed positioning, relative positioning, absolute positioning, and inherit. So inherit in this property from some of the parent elements. So we want to just check inherit for this, okay? And I also place for positioning, I also place on the left side 135 pixels. You know, it's probably just an arbitrary number, but it's just to keep everything all lined up correctly. So for this particular file, I'm going to put that at 135. So now I'm going to make sure that I am going to select over here in my HTML section. And where it says content right here, I'm going to actually select my content right here, and I'm going to put in a div. I'm going to get rid of the text for a second. Okay? Now you have to be very careful of this because it can be, you can mess up at this point. We want to put in our columns. So the first one I'm going to put in is I'm going to put in my left column, and then I'm going to put in my right column. So what I did is just highlight my text, and this is where I'm going to put it. So go ahead and make a new div. So we're going to go right here, and we're going to select the the plus sign. We're going to insert a div. So we're going to go insert div, and I'm going to put this, actually it's not going to wrap around, it's going to go inside. So let me just get this out, and let's just do an insert div. Make sure it goes in at insertion point, and that's what we want. So I'm going to put in a left column tag. A left column tag. So I'm just going to call it left column, and I'm going to hit OK. So it's going to fall inside my div. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of. It's going to say left column right here. So I'm actually going to just write left column and just get rid of all that other stuff. Okay. So now we have to actually make a style for it. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to select this, and you know it's going to pop up because we just put it in, and I'm just going to get rid of all this. I just want to make it just for my left column, just like we did before, and I'm going to hit enter. So now we can place in our styles. So for the left column, like I said, make sure that it goes into the content. You can see how it falls into the content. So we no longer have the content showing the color in the text. Now we have the column that's inside the content. So I'm going to add my width. I'm going to make my width 425 pixels. You know, you have to, if you're doing a fixed design, then you have to actually you know, think about your numbers, what size you want your columns, what size you want your left column, your right column. So this I'm going to make 425, and I'm going to put the height. I'm going to put the height at 300 because that's what I had put in before. If you want to get rid of it, you can just hit that trash. And I'm going to hit pixels, and I'm going to put 300. Enter. Okay, so I'm actually going to put in where it says margin. I'm going to go down to margin, and I'm going to place on the right side, I'm going to place in some pixels, and I'm going to place this at 25. Okay, and I'm going to float this because I want this to go to the left because this is my left column. So I have to find it down here where it says float. If you can't see that, I'll pull it up for you. Right here where it says float, just select a left column. And so I'm putting like a, you know, because I want to space it between my columns, so I'm put 25 pixels there. I set it at 425, and I put the height at 300. So that I can see my left column, I'm going to actually put a color in. I'm going to go down to where it says background color, which is right here. And I'm trying to keep with the colors that I put in the tutorial. So this one I had chose a green color. So let's see what we can find. It'll be darker than what I have in there already. And then hit enter. So now you can see my left column. Alright, so now I'm going to make a new div, and I'm going to make it my right column. Now you want to make sure that it's going to go in the correct order. So let me just move this for 1 second. The hardest thing about your divs is making sure that they're in the right spot. Okay, so now I have my left column, and I have everything inside my content. So right next to it, you know, where it says here's your ending div right here, HTML, and your beginning div right here for left column. Right after is where I am going to insert my right div. So go ahead and do that. Go insert div, and it says at insertion point, and I'm going to call this right column. And hit enter. Okay, so I have to find it. I said it's coming up like this, so I'm going to get rid of all this other text because I just want to make my style just on my right column. And then I hit enter. Okay, so now I have to make my right column. I have to make it fall to the right. I'm just going to look on my paper here. Okay, so you have it all set up here. So I'm going to set my width for this. I'm going to set this one with pixels again, and I'm going to set this one at 440. And I'm going to set my height for 300 because I want it to be 300. So it matches my other one. Okay, so obviously if this is going to be my right column, then I'm going to float this to the right. Okay. Now I'm even thinking that I might give it even a little more margin, and I think it might be a good idea to maybe put some margin over here on this side. So I'm going to put 10. So let's see what we have so far. So far, it's looking good. I'm just going to put some color in it so that I can actually see what it looks like. Like I said, I'm trying to keep up the colors for the that I've used on the example. So this one looks like some sort of blue. Let's just choose a light blue color. Maybe this color. Okay, enter. Okay, and I'm going to change my text. I can change the text right here if I want. I don't have to write it in there. I can just write right column right here. Okay, so far it's looking good. I'm almost finished with this, and we're going to take a look at the style sheet in a minute. So we have a left column, right column. We're going to work on the footer now. So for the footer, obviously, I'm going to, try to keep it so it's the same as the rest of your file. So the footer tag, I'm going to just set my footer, the box to clear in both. So let's just set the footer. I'm going to go up to the top. So let's find out where that is. Sometimes it's hard to find where all these things are. Okay, so it's right down here. So I'm going to select box clear. Right down here, it's going to be both. Okay. I don't really have to necessarily put a width on this. If I don't, I can put in 900 if I want. If you're afraid that it might fall out, and we can also put a height in. So let's go ahead and do that. Maybe make it 30. And I'm going to put a color in too so that you can see the color. I can put some padding on the top and the bottom for the text. And I'm going to position my text to fall right in the, start right from the center. And I can choose a color for my font if I want. Let's see, maybe I'll just keep the font white for the text. I can also, I'll hit enter. I can also choose a font family. I can choose a font weight. I can choose a font size. You can put pixels in, and I'm just going to make it 12 and hit enter. And then I'm going to put a background color from on my file, so you just have to go ahead and find it just so you can see it. Let's see, I might just choose this orange color here and hit enter. Okay, so you can start to see what you have here. I have the content for my my footer. It's fallen in the center, and I can just write footer. So you can kind of play around with this as far as the text goes. You may want to change the padding at the top and the bottom to try to get it to fall more into the center of the file. You can play around with this. So I can just maybe put more at the top. And see, it starts to bring the text down more. So you, like I said, you can just kind of play around with this. I can make this smaller. Maybe I'll make this instead of 30. Maybe I'll make it 25. So, or maybe I even make it 20. So you can also scroll this too. Okay, so it's starting to look a little better. Like I said, you can pretty much do anything. This is your project. This when you start working on this, you can design this any way that you want to. So just go ahead and I'm going to just preview this. Let's see how this looks. Let's just preview this. I'm going to preview this in Opera. Just go File, Preview, and I'm going to save. Okay. So somehow I lost my text from my header. I'm not really sure what happened up there. Let's go back and take a look at it and see what happened. Sometimes you have to. There it is. Okay, there we go. Now I can see it, so let's just preview this again. Okay. So this is looking pretty good. We haven't really done too much or anything, but at least it gives you an idea of how to go about doing this. And I'm going to also post this, the file that goes along with this and shows you how to do this step by step. And I also have that. Don't forget about the 7-section tutorial. I go into complete detail on how to design your home page.